So Governor Cuomo is again committing to passing a tax credit for donations to scholarship programs after dropping a similar measure from the budget. Now it's called the Parental Choice in Education Act, and it includes a version of the Education Investment Tax Credit, plus a tax break for low-income families paying private school tuition and another tax credit for public school teachers to cover classroom expenses. Joining me from New York City now to discuss this more is the Executive Director of NYCAN, Derrell Bradford. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
Okay, so first of all, let us discuss why the governor has decided to morph the EITC, as it was known, into this new act, Parental Choice in Education Act.
So I think there are two things there. One, I think he decided to do it because he thinks parental choice in education is a priority. You could look at a lot of his speech making and writing around the budget process, and certainly he made a point of letting New Yorkers know that there are lots of kids who go to public schools that are doing well, but there are 143,000 kids in New York City who go to public schools that are not the right fit for them. And so it was great that he made it a priority then, and he's making it a priority now. As far as like morphing it into this new animal, I think that's just legislative wrangling. The budget and his budget was a great opportunity to try to get it done. It's one of the tools that the governor has. It's probably one of his most powerful tools.
Yeah.
But the Senate had already passed a version of this legislation. The Assembly had adopted it, had a lot of support for it, and so his repackaging is just another bite at this apple.
Well, the Assembly, I mean, what he did was add some stuff in, like, I think that the covering teachers for their out-of-pocket expenses, giving them a tax credit, for example, is something that maybe Assembly Democrats could get on board with. But when we talk about what the Assembly Democrats support, the EITC, so this, pardon me, tax credit directly for this idea of contributions for scholarship funds is not something that I would say the majority of Assembly Democrats could get on board with. And now you have actually $50 million annually in tax credits for donors contributing to low and middle income students for private or religious schools, and only $20 million in credits for those who donate to public schools. So that seems a little skewed. Do you know why that change was made?
No, but I think that if you look at, I hate to sort of mix education issues, but the governor seems to be a pretty good negotiator on most of these things, and I would never negotiate for a governor. But like if you say, you want 50% teacher evaluation, 50% objective data on teacher evaluation, it's a lot easier to end at 30 or 20 conceivably. If you said 20 and you went to 25, people would fight you just as hard. So I don't think anyone, knows what the outcome is going to be in terms of like how the individual amounts of tax credits are apportioned. I think the fact that there are 4 ways to improve educational opportunity, and one of them actually helping teachers directly in terms of buying classroom expenses, classroom supplies, are the things we should stay focused on.
Well, the difficulty, though, here is by sort of repackaging it as this new animal, as you said, is not what he put forth in the budget, is not what the Senate actually, which supported the EITC, has put forth and passed, and it's certainly now a different thing for the Assembly Democrats to try and grapple with, and we only have 13 session days left. I mean, the timing of this, I know he's pushing very hard. It's almost like a campaign, and now there's an ad too, although not coming directly from the governor. Are you not worried about the timing, that it's a little late in the game?
So I did see that Senator Flanagan indicated that the Senate remains warm to these proposals, which is a good thing. And yeah, like timing is always an issue, but I think what's most important for people to understand, just regular folks who aren't involved in the political process all the time, is that they can make anything happen that they want to make happen in any amount of time.
True.
I don't mean to belittle it, but when budgets need to get done or when significant changes need to get made, if the will is there, the legislation or the proposal actually gets done. And so would we love to have more time to talk about it? Absolutely. But On the other hand, like, do we think that kids in New York State who need better educational opportunities should have to wait more than the next, 2.5 weeks to get this done? I don't think so.
Well, and also the governor dropped this linkage to the DREAM Act, which was it was his tactic in the budget negotiations, where he said, okay, Senate Republicans like the education investment tax credit, and they don't like the DREAM Act, but the Assembly Democrats like the DREAM Act, but they don't like the tax credit, so I'll pair them together, and then everybody gets something they want and something they don't want all at the same time. That did not work. Now, however, he's dropped DREAM altogether, which I think advocates are pretty disappointed in. He says he continues to support it, but the linkage no longer is there. Does that weaken things? I mean, he substituted one thing that the Assembly Democrats could like for another, right? The tax credit for teachers and their classroom expenses. But I don't know, is that as strong as the DREAM Act lure was?
So the DREAM Act is indeed a powerful lure, and I actually thought it was a pretty good legislative tactic to marry the two of them. Unfortunately, whether or not it's a better or worse strategy right now, we find them both proceeding forward on their own tracks. The one thing I would say about this is that what the DREAM Act needs right now is the same kind of push and activity that you're seeing on the tax credit, which is that they're separate, they've been separated. There are lots of common support among both of them actually. There needs to be a concerted effort to hold people accountable so that they actually make these things a political reality. I'm disappointed that it didn't get done myself, but it is, it's not dead. As long as the governor keeps saying that he wants to support it. He has tremendous leverage, and if he can't get it done now, he has another chance at it in the spring. So
similarly, or in response to, I should say, the governor's big end of session push on this Parental Choice in Education Act, you have NYSET and their allies saying, well, this is a quote, just another giveaway to the rich, right? That it's an effort to sort of help rich donors or rich people who send their kids to private school and then write off that tuition. So what's your response to that?
So I have to say I think it's unfortunate that those folks wouldn't take seriously the fact that there are lots of families who send their kids to schools that aren't the right fit for them. That's my opinion. The facts are that if you're against charitable donations for scholarships, you should be against charitable donations for everything. And what they've elected to do is highlight the fact that they don't support kids who are low income having the opportunity to opt out of schools that might not work for them, or having more choice, or those parents having more choices. The fact is that more than half of the scholarships are going to go to low-income families living in some of the most expensive places in the world, those being New York City and environs. And we've had and continue to have a crisis for, not in all schools, but in lots of schools, of educational outcomes.
So what's
if you think that, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just, because we're running out of time, and what's your strategy for the sort of end of session, final weeks as we sort of ramp up to the big ugly, as we call it, which is whatever ball of wax gets passed at the end of all these unrelated things that are linked together. You don't have that much time. You have to convince, it seems to me, really the Assembly Democrats and their leader, Carl Heastie, to put this on the floor. Now, it may rise, it may fall on its own merits, but Carl Heastie, just to remind everybody, was a co-sponsor once upon a time of the EITC before he became Speaker, and then removed his name from everything he had sponsored because he said he had to leave his decisions up to the will of the conference.
So I would describe the Heastie strategy as hasty. but also directed. Look, right now we have, there are ads on television. There is a significant grassroots effort to contact Democratic, specifically members of the Assembly, on this issue by people in their districts who support this issue. I'm going to go meet with some parents today after I do this, and next week as well, who are in Speaker Hastie's district, to let him know how important this is. The most important takeaway for everyone, again, who watches politics a lot or a little bit, is that these people have tremendous power, and they also have tremendous responsibility. I'm a big comic book buff, so great power, great responsibility. The Speaker was a supporter of this, and this can get done, and they can and will get something for doing it. We should just keep kids at the center and not, wait another year or 2 years to tee up something that would expand all kinds of options for all kinds of families and support teachers who take money out of their own pockets to buy classroom supplies. It's a win-win for everybody.
Well, time is running out. We will keep an eye on it, as I have said. I thank you so much, Derrell, for being with me.
Liz, thank you so much for having me.